welcome to another edition of 10 Count. I'm Steve Kim, live from Hollywood Smoke here in Santa Monica, California. I'm joined by Michael Montero and Michael Baca. Gentlemen, this past weekend from the Thomas Mack Center in Las Vegas, it was the return of Manny Pacquiao, who takes the WBO welterweight title by clearly outpointing Jessie Vargas. Mr. Montero, go to you first. If 1 to 100, 100 being the apex of Manny Pacquiao, let's say from 2008 to 2011, what is the 2016 version of the Pac-Man?
Based on the heights that we saw Pacquiao climb to, I would put this somewhere in the 60s.
Wow, that low, that dissipated.
Yeah, this is not the guy that beat a still prime Miguel Cotto, that just devastated Ricky Hatton. But he's still good enough to beat 90% of the welterweights out there. That's just how special Manny Pacquiao was at his peak. I'd probably put him somewhere around 65. He's not that guy anymore because it's not really the physical to me, it's more the mental. I think he's just going through the motions. He's a full-time senator, singer, father of how many now? Yeah. 6 or 7. He's a part-time fighter.
Mike, is this an indictment, though, of today's young welterweights? Because I had a poll on Twitter, or there was a discussion yesterday, and the bottom line is take away Mayweather, who as of right now is retired, more on him later, but Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, any of those guys from that era, maybe even Errol Spence, none of these guys are favored. That's the consensus over Pacquiao. So you can look at it two ways. Is it one, an indictment on the current welterweight class, or number two, is Pacquiao still that good?
I think it's a little bit of both. To go on the scale that you guys judged him on, I would put him at an 80, 85. Because we have to remember, Pacquiao was never supposed to be a welterweight when he started boxing. And I think it speaks to his legend that he's, taking care of, a top 5 welterweight. I would rate Jessie Vargas, maybe around that area. Definitely not top 3 or 4, but he's still beating him handily. He still has this endearing quality when he fights, jumping in and out of the ring. We saw that with the footwork. We saw his hand speed. The flurries aren't quite what they used to be. The knockout power is not there. But he's still convincingly beating these top 5 guys.
One thing, I think since 2012, when he was planted face first by Juan Manuel Marquez, there's a part of me that thinks he faced his boxing mortality. He didn't ever want to go back there again. I think he's a different guy. I think one of the most underrated aspects of Manny Pacquiao, I think, his boxing IQ. Is that if he wanted to do his version of Pernell Whitaker, which I think he is now, where he doesn't put himself in harm's way, it's not so hell-bent for leather, it is still very difficult, guys, to corral Pacquiao based on his footwork and his in-and-out movement.
He presents stylistic matchups for a lot of these guys that you can't imitate in sparring. The angles, the way he gets in and out, like you said, the footwork, it's still very, very explosive. It's not what it was. But, to go back on that question you asked a second ago about these new guys coming up, the problem is we don't know how they'll look against Pacquiao or against Mayweather because those fights haven't happened. And with Floyd and with Manny, they built themselves up by fighting the best as they came up, especially Pacquiao as he moved up in weight. We haven't seen this new generation do that yet, and that's the problem.
Am I nuts? I know a lot of people still say, boy, when Pacquiao fights, it's still exciting. It's still must-see TV. I don't know. I don't feel that way. I don't want to say it's monotonous, but it's repetitive. And he has not scored a knockout since 2009, and there's several different theories. Listen, he's fighting solid, durable, physical guys.
Much bigger.
I get it.
Yeah.
But there was a point in that fight, Saturday night, rounds 8, 9, and 10, I'm thinking, okay, there's an exclamation point. And no, that's the problem. There hasn't been an exclamation point in a very, very long time. I still get the sense Pacquiao's just playing out the contract. He's not leaving any of Aram's money on that table.
I agree. Let me ask you guys this question. Here's where it might get a little controversial. He's had this religious awakening in the last few years. Has that killed that killer instinct to a degree?
Like you think he got a little nicer over the years?
That's how it looks to me.
Boy, his politics sure don't say that. I mean, he's all for the death penalty,
exactly.
isn't he? I mean, he sure got his killer instinct as a politician.
He's appealing to a different base.
So inside the ring, though, he's the punching pacifist, while he wants to have a mass death row in the Philippines.
He had Vargas buzzed a few times. He had Algieri buzzed a few times, and I get it. These are much bigger guys. They're much younger. They're taller, longer. But That guy that almost decapitated Ricky Hatton, he's not there anymore.
But wait a minute, let's go back. November or December of 2012, I was there ringside for that third fight, or was it the third or fourth fight with Juan Manuel Marquez. I thought that was the best Manny had looked against Marquez
Absolutely.
since the first round of their first fight. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, he's busted him up. And looks like to me, if he just lays behind his jab and lets the fight go its natural course, I think he's on his way to stopping Marquez. And then he ran into the perfect punch. And again, maybe that's what's dissipated that quote-unquote finishing instinct that maybe he realizes he beat himself that night in certain respects, and maybe the only way that could ever happen again is by being reckless.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other point. Whenever I watch a pay-per-view, I always sit down and really think about, was this worth $70? For Saturday night against Jessie Vargas, I really don't think it was, and it's because we haven't seen that knockout power from Manny Pacquiao in the late 2000s. He leaves you, wanting more. This, sure, it was fun. We saw flashes of the old Manny, but he didn't leave you wanting more.
So wait a minute, Stephen A. Smith did not give you your money's worth?
Sure, yeah, he did. You know why? Because he did exactly what I expected him to do.
Be a provocateur.
Exactly.
I didn't really have a problem with him.
No,
Listen,
I
if you're
didn't.
looking for him to be Larry Merchant 2.0, that was never going to happen. Guys, taking a quick look at the undercard, Oscar Valdez with a 7th round stoppage over the Japanese challenger in what was his first defense of his WBO featherweight title. And then Jesse Magdaleno outpoints Nonito Donaire. Guys, very simply, what stood out to you on the undercard? I think Valdez is who he is, an exciting, young, streaking star. I want to see more of him. And I think Jesse Magdaleno is proof positive that Manuel Robles, I think, is one of the bright young training stars. I thought he fought a disciplined performance by never falling into the traps or the counterpunching traps of the Filipino Flash.
That fight was essentially Magdaleno's right hook against Donaire's straight right hand, and you could see Donaire trying to set traps, being the veteran. And it worked in some of the early rounds. I thought he tagged Magdaleno a couple times, but you talked about the trainer. It gave great advice in the corner, and Magdaleno stuck to his game plan. Down the stretch, he was landing the better shots, busting Donaire up. I like that performance. With Valdez, I thought it was another great performance by him. I just still want to see a little more variation in the offensive attack. It's one speed constantly, and I want to see a changeup. I want to see a fastball.
And Mike, I'm just going to say this very simply. No disrespect. I get it. He's popular in China. But Zhao Shiming is Chinese for Ivan Calderon. If you need an hour of your life taken on a pay-per-view card, I guess Zhao Shiming is that new, I don't want to say butterbean, but he is that Bob Arum vanity project that no matter what we think, he's going to lead on a pay-per-view card.
I know. I was just going to, if you didn't bring him up, I was going to say, does Shiming not exist?
Yeah.
But to his fight, I thought he fought well. I think he's getting better.
But is he any good?
I think he's good, sure, yeah. He doesn't have knockout power.
I think he's a very good amateur, but when I hear Freddie Roach, and I love Freddie, okay? But when Freddie says we're ready to face Roman Gonzalez,
No.
as I
That's
tweeted
going
out
bad.
on Saturday, Roman Gonzalez would eat up Zhao Shiming so fast that he'd be hungry an hour later. Come on.
It's like Chinese food.
Yeah, there you go.
Ba-boom, psh. I'll just say this much, though, for Zhao Shiming. He's going to build a market over there in China.
Very
And look,
marketable.
it's a country of over 1 billion people. There are going to be good professional fighters coming out of China over the next 10 to 20 years. And Zhao Shiming, he started it. So you got to give him that much.
Yeah, he is a pioneer. All right, well, that's it for this segment of the 10 Count. On behalf of the Michaels, this is Steve Kim saying goodbye, everybody.